Welcome back to the Hood News Fantasy Football Podcast. This is the Week 15 Studs and Duds. I got my dog with me here, BBTB.
Yep.
And I'm your host, Keem. No MFB this week. He is out fishing. So this is a very emotional episode. There are a lot of players here that either got you into the next round of playoffs or got you kicked out.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you played against some of these studs or you played some of these duds on your team and you ended up losing because of them, that is fantasy. In the week that mattered most, some of these guys couldn't show up, and it is just a lot of emotion in this episode. But if you're listening, we're going to try and keep it short. We're just going to try and blast through it, because if you let me sit here and talk about it, I will maybe start to tear up, and we don't want that. So let's go ahead and jump into the QB studs. At the very top, again, is Josh Allen with 41.28 fantasy points in the normal scoring. But
that's my guy. That's my guy.
There are a lot of words I would like to use to describe Josh Allen right now, and my guy is not one of them. He is clearly gunning for that MVP. Like, he really wants it, clearly, and he's going to do whatever it takes. He threw himself touchdowns. He had 4 touchdowns this week, 6 last week. It's just going bananas. He had 2 on the ground, 2 in the air. Last week he had 3 on the ground, 3 in the air. And then next week, when I need him to play for me in my other league, because I was on bye this week, he's going to only throw 1 touchdown, rush 1 touchdown or something. He's just going to not do very well.
He's going to go crazy.
Oh man. Yeah. He knocked me out of playoffs in a league that I needed to get into playoffs, and I played against him. He had 50 points. And this week he knocked me out of another league playoffs. I played against him round 1. So, yeah, I'm not happy with him. He better do this. He better continue to go stupid, because I didn't need him the last 2 weeks. I was already secured and I had the bye week, and now I need him. If he doesn't perform, I will 100% hate Josh Allen. 100%. Next on the list, on the other side of that ball game, was Jared Goff with 41.06 fantasy points. He threw 5 touchdowns, no rushing for Jared Goff, but he did it all in the air against a very good Bills defense. So surprising, but they still ended up losing, but still a great fantasy performance from Jared Goff. I thought he wouldn't do so well. I said to sit Jared Goff. BBTB and MFB said, I don't know about that one, Chief. It's a high over under. And they were right. I was clearly very wrong. I will take that. I did say to sit him, because I'm not going to keep talking about that. Anyways, yeah,
just real quick. The over under was at 58, or it was 56.5, moved up to 58.5, and they combined for 90, which is crazy.
Yeah, that's insane.
Nuts. But yeah, Jared Goff, man.
Yeah.
But that's why, though, you fade the quarterback. Fade the quarterback, because you might get a quarterback like that. So.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he probably wouldn't have got you 2 playoffs. Maybe. I don't know. A lot of it was on the ground this year. But yeah, and he had a couple dead weeks, though. I would have given up on Jared Goff after the first few weeks. He was not very good. He didn't pass 15 fantasy points till week 4 against Seattle, and they had the bye. But yeah, another reason to possibly fade the quarterback. But anyways, another name here, Lamar Jackson. We're used to it. They played the Giants. Not much there. Hopefully he helped you win. Hopefully you didn't play against him. Not Josh Allen or Jared Goff numbers, but still excellent for Lamar Jackson. He for sure got you into playoffs. Has been great all year. Next on the list, surprisingly, Aaron Rodgers. We talked about this, though. When QBs play Jacksonville, they usually go off, and Aaron Rodgers did just that. And we did discuss how the Jets are out of playoff contention, and they're just going to be playing for fun, kind of. And I'm pretty sure you guys can go back and fact check me, but I'm pretty sure I said, look, Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams are going to go out there and have fun. They're going to find each other. Aaron Rodgers is going to find Davante Adams out there and connect with him on some touchdowns and just have fun with it. And that's what they did.
Yeah, man. Aaron Rodgers playing to play next season. He's trying to show the people, like, I can still play. Hopefully we're going to turn this team around next year because they got really unlucky. And I think they're the team that's been in the most drought out of any of the
longest playoff drought.
Yeah, exactly. I think they're on 14 or 15 years.
I thought it was 12. It might have been 14 then. Wow.
Something like that.
Yeah, you might be right. But hey, we'll have to wait and see. But no, Aaron Rodgers, 30.06 fantasy points. A very good performance. You probably didn't start him, but if you did, good for you.
Yep.
Couple more names here. Jalen Hurts, who finally bounced back and had himself a good week, played well against Pittsburgh. 28.1 fantasy points. Good call. Baker Mayfield, 28.02 against a tough Chargers defense. That was good. And then Jaden Daniels, I threw his name in here, 23.64 fantasy points. Hopefully it was enough to get you your win this week in the first round of playoffs. That does it for the QB studs. Do you want to touch on any of these guys or?
No, I mean, like, as you can see though, Baker Mayfield, Jaden Daniels, you faded the quarterback. You have one of those guys and you're somehow in the semifinals playing with those guys.
I need to see the stat for how many teams with Baker Mayfield as their quarterback ended up in the playoffs. Cause like he was on waivers when the season started in a lot of leagues.
Oh yeah. For sure.
And he gets Dallas and Carolina next 2 weeks.
Fire.
And yeah, and you might have been scared to start him against the Chargers defense. They've been really good. So he ended up doing just fine. So that's good. Good for Baker Mayfield to have himself a great season.
Yep.
Let's move on to the wide receiver studs. At the very top, Davante Adams, 38.3 fantasy points. And I think he had a donut at halftime. I think he had no fantasy points at the half. Look it up. Real quick, I'll talk about his score. 38.3 fantasy points. I called this out. Well, okay, I didn't call out that he was going to have himself an amazing game. But we did mention that I think they're just going to go out there and have fun. And he's been connecting a lot the last few weeks. He had 12 targets week 13, 11 targets last week, 12 targets this week. Almost hit 200 yards this last week. He had a 2-point conversion as well in this game. So they're just going out there. They're going to have fun. They're playing the Rams next week. So I think that if you held on to Davante Adams, if you traded for him after he got traded to the Jets, it's starting to pay out. It wasn't paying out at first. First few weeks in New York were terrible. He had a decent game against Houston, whatever game against Arizona, whatever game against the Colts, went to the bye week and has been doing just fantastic ever since. So if you had Davante Adams, if you held on to him, if he's still on your team, he was on me and BBTB's team. Mm-hmm. Actually, we played against Josh Allen and James Cook this week, but we had Davante Adams who got us the win. And I gave BBTB crap because I drafted Davante Adams and he got annoyed that I didn't draft Cooper Kupp. But we will talk about Cooper Kupp later on this episode.
100% we will.
But yeah, did you check?
I couldn't find it.
Okay.
But if
I think he had,
crazy.
Yeah, I thought I saw a stat about that. But if that's true, that's insane that he only did this in one half. That's unbelievable. But anyways, next on the list, Mike Evans, who I mentioned is going for the 1,000-yard season. I know it's a tough Chargers defense, but I was like, look, he wants that record to keep going strong. 1,000 yards a season, and he's close. He had 159 yards this game, so he's almost there now.
Currently at 749. So that's what, 251 yards?
Yep. And he could do that he could get most of them in these next 2 games. And then the last game of the season, he could get it. I think he's going to go crazy these next 2 games, especially this next game against Dallas. And then against Carolina, he's going to top it off and then try and do it in the 17 games. And then whatever's left, like the last 30 yards or 40 yards in the week 18 game, he's going to get that easily. So keep playing Mike Evans. If you have him, if you held on to him through his injury, man, you're happy. He's doing just fine.
Mm-hmm.
Next on the list, Amon-Ra St. Brown to go along with Jared Goff. I mean, he 18 targets, 14 receptions, 193 yards and a touchdown, man. Just fantastic.
Yeah, 18 targets is crazy.
Yeah.
Absolutely nuts.
It's tied his most targets of the season. He also had 18 targets against Tampa Bay week 2. But 18 targets is completely unnormal for a player who's been getting single digit fantasy points in the last 3 weeks. And when you needed him most, week 1 of playoffs, he performed. So good for Amon-Ra. Good if you had him. Bad if you played against him.
Mm-hmm.
If you played against him, sorry. We played against him. We played against him, Josh Allen, and James Cook. And
our score, by the way, was we won 192.4 points, and the other guy had 187.8. So
a shootout.
That's how crazy our matchup was.
No bonus scoring or nothing, just PPR league, straight
just
PPR.
A regular PPR.
We are going to keep tooting our horn. I'm sorry, we're both kind of excited about that win. But anyways, let's continue and stop harping on that. Brian Thomas, 27.5 fantasy points. Him and Mac Jones have been working well together, man.
Yeah, seriously, he looks really good. He's still, I think, in the race of offensive rookie of the year, if I'm not mistaken. I know Jaden Daniels is up there. I think another guy, but he's still playing to just
Bo Nix, maybe. Yeah, Bo Nix.
Oh yeah, Bo Nix could be there, but Brian Thomas looks really, really good, especially for the draft position that he was drafted at too, because a lot of teams faded him and he fell to the Jags. So
yeah, no, he's been a great player. And he's shown it in like tremendous flashes. If you had Brian Thomas and he is kind of like your flex player, he is doing
phenomenal.
Great. Yeah. I hope you started him. Yeah. Cause the last few weeks, Mac Jones is the QB. Do you trust it? Do you not? I don't know, but you can trust him. He looks good.
Mm-hmm.
Terry McLaurin, 22.8 fantasy points. I'm going to go through a couple of these names really quick just to speed this up. McLaurin, 22.8. He's been good. Devonta Smith, 22.5. Had himself a nice week. CeeDee Lamb, 22.1. Also had himself a good week. Rashad Bateman stepped up in that offense with Lamar Jackson, 21.5. A.J. Brown, 21 fantasy points. And a bonus, Malik Neighbors, 19.2 fantasy points, who finally got in the end zone and finally had himself a decent game. Hopefully it was enough to get you your win since he's been doing nothing the last couple weeks.
Yeah.
Do you want to touch on any of these players? Do you want to talk about any of them?
I was going to say that Terry McLaurin is just the Terry McLaurin we've been waiting for the past couple seasons, man. He's like a fire quarterback like Jaden Daniels, and dude, Terry McLaurin looks elite.
Yeah, he's only had 3 performances under double digits in half PPR scoring. And the first 2 of those 3 were week 1 and week 2, and then week 11 against Philadelphia. But they get Philly next week at home. Are you scared to play McLaurin?
No, I'm not. This is the same thing I said last week about Jalen Hurts. I'm like, Jalen Hurts needs to throw the ball a lot more against this good Pittsburgh defense. And that's exactly what they did. And so I feel like it's the same thing.
That was Washington honestly
it up. So I feel like they still got to throw the ball. This is going to be a dogfight. Oh, this is for the division, by the way. This is for the meaning division. Like, if Eagles win, they solidify their first seed of that division. If Washington wins,
they have a chance.
They have a chance to take it down the line. So
yeah, this is gonna be a good game. Yeah, definitely. So, I would hope that McLaurin can keep it up next week, especially in the fantasy semifinals. But he's looked good this year with Jaden Daniels. They've connected very well. And let's hope he continues that streak.
Yep.
Nothing else on any of these guys. CeeDee Lamb had himself a decent game against Carolina. They play Tampa next week, so CeeDee should continue to eat. He had 13 targets, 9 receptions, 116 yards, and a touchdown. So you expect that of CeeDee. Also, I'm going to talk about Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown, like BBTV said, to beat Pittsburgh. And I was worried about the Eagles. I'm not going to lie to you about that offense and how they would do in playoffs because they were not throwing the ball at all. And it's like, dude, you can't rely entirely on the run game to win a football game, you know? Against a bad team, you can do it. Just run the ball and, you know, run the clock down. Or, you know, in a regular season game, maybe you can get away with it. Mm-hmm. But when they start throwing the ball and they, you know, the offense gets moving, they use their receivers, they look like a really good top level team.
Did you see Jalen Hurts' post game interview? The first thing he said, he literally hopped on, like literally hopped onto a seat, and he literally said, "Is that what y'all wanted?" That's literally what first thing. No one asked him a question. Nothing.
Look, I mean, to be honest with you, yes, that is what I wanted. And honestly, it was, and I'm not going to lie, it was good to see. Like, it's good to finally see him throw the ball and look good doing it because he threw a lot of turnover. I think he had a turnover that game. No? He had a pick.
Let me check. I had him.
Or was it a fumble?
Fantasy team.
He had a turnover.
Had a
fumble. Lost fumble. Yes. So he did have a turnover that game. He tried to get out of the pocket. I think he started to rush, and then TJ Watt came in and got it out of it. I think it was TJ Watt. Anyways, no, we do want to see that, especially if you're a fantasy owner of those receivers. You do want to see more throwing. You do want to see, and the team needs to see it more if they're going to want to win a Super Bowl, you know? So anyways, enough about the Eagles.
Running back.
Those guys look good when Jalen Hurts throws the ball. So let's move on to the RB studs. At the very top is a Cardinals player, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. James Conner, 28.3 fantasy points. He's been quietly really good. This week and last week, 20 plus fantasy points. He's been solid, man. So he's like a decent mid-round RB that wasn't really doing anything crazy, but the last 2 weeks been doing very well. Plays Carolina next week. A very good player to have in the fantasy playoffs.
Well, every year James Conner has been solid. Like, I don't know how he keeps going so high.
And you know what's crazy is he ends up at the end of the season always popping off. It's so weird. Last season he did the same thing. He had a crazy last game of the season.
Yeah, playing the Eagles. I actually remember.
Yeah, and I think he had 2 touchdowns or something, and that was the fantasy finals. So yeah, James Conner end of the season just turns up. So he may be someone that you need to target as long as he stays healthy and he stays the
Carolina next week. So he should have a field day, like an absolute field day.
100%.
And funny enough, I play him next week. Lovely.
Have fun with that one, brother. Next on the list, Jahmyr Gibbs, and in a huge shootout, and they needed him. And they still couldn't win. You had a touchdown on the ground, a touchdown through the air. Still lost to Buffalo. Josh Allen wants the MVP title. But also Montgomery, MCL, out for the season. Jahmyr Gibbs took over. So, yeah, very, very sad.
Man.
Huh?
He was playing like a dog, dude. Loved
it. And we talked about Montgomery, and I'm a Jahmyr Gibbs owner. I had no Montgomery shares. I was like, Montgomery's whatever. You know, as Jahmyr gets, you know, last year was his rookie season. This year he's going to take over that backfield. And then watching Montgomery run, I was like, dude, this guy is nuts. He runs like a dog.
Madman.
But we talked about how he keeps getting beat up. He takes so many hits, breaks so many tackles that eventually his body's going to break down.
Within 2 weeks, he had a hurt quad, hamstring, knee, calf.
Man.
2 weeks. I think I remember that stretch.
Taking way too many hits. He's like the anti-Tyler Lockett. Tyler Lockett catches the ball and just falls to the ground so he doesn't take any hits. Exactly. He's the exact opposite. He's like, no, let me see how many tackles I can break.
Let me take on 3 to 4 guys, you know?
Yeah, and it's like, dude, you're killing yourself, man. I mean, he got injured. I hope he gets better. I hope he heals up and everything, and he's good. He comes back next season strong because he's a dog, man. Runs like a dog. He plays well. Next on the list, James Cook. With, on the other side of that ball, 25.8 fantasy points, had himself a nice run. The defenders were trying to grab him by the hair to bring him down. They couldn't get him. I don't know if you saw the game, if you saw the play. they tried to grab the dreads and pull him. They couldn't pull him. I think they got a hold of one and then just like he slipped out. Yeah. But James Cook, he's looked good, man. He last week he had a bad game. This week he bounced back. Hopefully, if you had him, you made it to the playoffs. He got you into the next round with that performance.
Yep.
Next on the list is Chase Brown,
my dog,
who was BBTB called him out early on in the year. I think that was your trade for Chase Brown.
Week 8 trade CeeDee Lamb for him. Just saying.
It was not week 8 when you said that. This was after. No.
It was week 8. Zach Moss was on IR week 8 after week 8.
Okay. We did our trade talk episode in week 11.
I'm saying before the trade talk episode. I was literally said week 8. As soon as I saw Zach Moss go on IR, I said Chase Brown, done.
You did. I'll give you credit for that. I will give you credit for that because I do remember you calling out a lot. I just don't remember what week it was, but yeah. So I mean,
it was after
we talked about it.
So technically, week 9 before week 9 started, after week 8 finished.
But before the trade deadline closed in your guys' league, like 2 weeks. So you guys had a chance to get him. Mm-hmm. If you got Chase Brown, you're probably in the playoffs. If you had him in the playoffs and you played him, he got you almost 25 fantasy points. He's been tearing it up and he's looked great. So, Chase Brown definitely was worth it if you traded for him. Played very well. Tajay Spears, 24.2 fantasy points. Weird.
Surprised. Yeah.
Weird. Didn't see that one coming. You know what I mean?
Not even close.
Yeah, it was a very shocking.
I will say though that majority of his points did come in the fourth quarter when I think Bengals were up by like 3 scores and they were just not playing proper football. So they just, I don't know, Tajay Spears, like dump offs and Tajay Spears was just running all over him. So
yeah.
So could happen again, but
probably should have mentioned him in the waiver wire episode, huh?
Okay, y'all did not. Yeah, the waiver wire. Yeah, we didn't mention Spears, but he's 44% rostered. I'm kind of looking at that right now.
Yeah, a little late for that.
Somehow need an RB, grab him. Hopefully, you guys are watching both videos.
Yeah, hopefully. Anyways, Josh Jacobs, 19.6 fantasy points. I think 1 week I tried to call his like regression, then the next week we tried to call it, and this week we both said that's a bad idea. Josh Jacobs, 19.6 fantasy points, has been tearing it up nonstop consecutively. Has been a really good fantasy player. Started off the season decent, kind of did whatever. Weeks 3 and 4 had some off weeks. And then since then kind of has been playing very well, especially after the bye. So hopefully you have him. He gets the Saints next week, Minnesota in the finals, but hopefully he does enough for you there.
Yep.
That does it for the running back studs. Do you want to talk about any of these guys?
Sure. I mean, we have Josh Jacobs on there.
I just talked about him for like 2 minutes straight.
No. I'm just saying like Josh Jacobs. No, like what Josh Jacobs did to you. If you want to just talk about what Josh, like the fumble and then Zach Charbonnet going down. Or
I'm not talking about that. That's unnecessary. But it he had a fumble in the game. The fumble led to a Zach Charbonnet touchdown. I'm playing against Zach Charbonnet. I lost because of that. Well, I lost for like 3 other reasons.
Yeah, there's 3 other reasons, but one of them was that.
Yeah, there's also Josh Allen on that team. That was fun. So anyways, way to go, Josh Jacobs. Good job. Anyways, on to the tight end studs. At the top, Jonnu Smith, man, who's been nonstop. Just, I'm telling you, I called this 3 weeks ago. Week 12. No, I called this probably 4 or 5 weeks ago. I said, he looks like Tua's favorite target. I think Tua really likes Jonnu Smith. Even last game when they played the Jets, Jonnu Smith had 0 targets before overtime, then gets 4 targets, 3 receptions, 44 yards, and a touchdown. No matter what, he's going to produce. And he has become he's had 11 targets in 3 of his last 4 games. If you have Jonnu Smith, he might be a late league winner. Like, he has been very good, especially if you didn't have a tight end all year and he just popped off middle of the season, he might end up being a league winner.
All I'm saying is throw MFB's logic right out the window. This man said at some point, whatever comes up has to come down. That man's been up. That man has not come down.
I think Jonnu Smith has just found his groove in that offense, and Tua trusts him. So he's just like, if I don't know where to go, I'm going to Jonnu Smith. And he's going to catch the ball. You build that trust with your quarterback, and some players build it over time. Yeah. He built it over the course of the season, and Tua likes throwing to him. It has been that way. I think the best receiver on the team was Jonnu Smith this week. So 9 catches, 48 yards, and a touchdown is great for a tight end.
Yep.
Next on the list, Sam Laporta in that shootout did very well, 14.6 fantasy points. Trey McBride, 13.2 fantasy points. Will never get in the end zone, especially not this season. Brenton Strange, 12.8 fantasy points, stepped up with no Evan Ingram. Mm-hmm. And then Josh Wiley.
Who?
Weil. I do not know. The Tennessee tight end, the other one, not Chig Okonkwo. There's another tight end there that got a touchdown. He got 5 targets, 37 yards. Yeah. I think he's a rookie.
No clue, brother. No.
I have not heard of this guy. Complete rando. Yeah, I don't know him. He's white. Mason Rudolph is white. They connected. so yeah.
The connection they got.
Yeah, they got something there. Anyways, that's it for tight ends. I'm not really going to go in too deep with these guys. Sam Laporta, good for him. He's doing his thing out there, which is good because, he was kind of off most of the year. McBride has been continuously good, so you like to see it. But that's all I have for the tight ends. Anything else on any of these guys?
No, man. Just props to you if you got Jonnu Smith when the right timing in the middle of the season.
Yeah, honestly, I got him in one league, and man, he's been carrying me in the tight end position. Let's move on to the duds, starting with the quarterbacks at the very top. Tua Tagovailoa, 3.84 fantasy points against the Houston Texans in a must-win situation when they really needed the win. Tua found out that he truly does have CTE, and we saw it in full form in this game. Let's just actually real quick, just even before that, I want to talk about Will Levis real quick at the very, very, very tippity top. If you somehow thought that playing him against Cincinnati would have been a good matchup, through 3 picks and a fumble, he had negative 4.44 fantasy points. So if you thought maybe, just maybe, you had no options at quarterback, you drafted Anthony Richardson, and you tried to stick with him through the year, and you just were not down. And you were like, dude, Will Levis, right? Crazy, 300 IQ play here. I'm going to play Will Levis against Cincinnati. Terrible defense, right?
Yeah.
3 picks and a fumble.
Absolutely
lost. Crazy. So he lost the fumble, so that's another -2 points, depending on your...
You want to know what's funny? Is that his girl pulled up to the game, and she made a whole TikTok video on it, of going to the Titans game. And basically everyone on social media is flaming Will Levis. I'm
blaming her for that L.
Or blaming her. Just saying
I'm blaming her for this because that's unheard of. Yeah, he was not this bad going through the season, and Cincinnati defense was pretty bad going into that game.
Yeah.
I'm blaming his girl. But anyways, horrible performance. I just had to throw that in there because I was just despicable.
Yeah.
On to Tua again, because I just have to talk about him because if you started Tua, you probably lost. To be honest, it's very unlikely that you won with Tua. Just be honest.
Crazy.
I'll be honest, if you had any of these duds, you probably didn't make it to the next round of your playoffs, which really sucks because there's some very big names here.
Mm-hmm.
Tua is not that biggest name, but there are some very big names here that probably lost you your playoffs. And I'm sorry, because I lost. I lost by 4 points because I had Tua give me 4 points. I'm not going to keep talking about him. Next on the list, Brock Purdy, 3.98 fantasy points. Also probably lost to your playoffs.
Personally, I think that was an obvious sit an hour before the game because of how bad the weather was. Because you called it out.
I live 15 minutes from the stadium and actually probably like 5 minutes driving. I'm not going to lie. It's a 15-minute walk or a 20-minute walk. But yeah, I live down the street from the stadium. I had someone ask me, a friend of mine, said, should I start Deebo Samuel? I said, he's my start of the week. I told him that probably about 2 p.m. or so. And it was cloudy. It was 4 o'clock. At about 4:15, I texted. I said, hey, bro, the rain's really coming down right now. It's up to you if you want to start Deebo on this one.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, yeah, Brock Purdy, 3.98 fantasy points. You probably lost if you started Brock Purdy. This is why you faded the quarterback, huh?
No, but you're not playing Brock Purdy. Horrible weather, though. Like
it's a great divisional matchup. It's a divisional matchup.
It's a horrible weather
game. Bro, but if you're living on the East Coast or if you're living not in Santa Clara, you don't know what the rain's actually like. You just know it's raining. Okay, what does that mean? Brother, the rain was coming down, man.
You're in a playoff game. You better start.
It's a divisional game against a poor Rams defense.
Like during the game, remember it was Cleveland versus.
Look.
Go for the snow.
That was snowing. That was snowing. That's different.
Just saying, though.
And to be honest, James Winston had like 12 fantasy points. Him and Russell Wilson both, I think, had like 10 plus. This is pathetic. If I had 10 plus this week, I would have won. Tua would give me 4. Anyways, horrible performances from both those guys. This is why you faded the quarterback. So you get one of these guys and they'll just screw you right the first week of playoffs. Next on the list, Kyler Murray, 10 fantasy points. Just not enough, man. Just not enough. What is that? 10 fantasy points? What?
Dude.
This is what happens. This is what happens when you target McBride once in the first half. Like, you throw the ball. I get it. James Conner. Oh, he's a dog. He's amazing. He is. But use your arm, bro. You're like, as the quarterback, or do it on the ground. Like, I think it's safe to say you cannot trust Kyler Murray as a fantasy quarterback.
Look, this was, I think, one of our targets, our like trade targets for the deadline, going into fantasy playoffs because he had a great schedule. Brother, he has Carolina next week. If he doesn't go crazy against Carolina, then I don't know
what are you going to do? Lose and then not be in the finals? Like, it doesn't matter. Like,
no, I'm just saying. What I'm saying is, it's like, I personally think you should probably still keep Kyler versus Carolina.
Yeah, but I'm be honest. If you start Kyler Murray, you're probably out of the playoffs.
That is true. Actually, there is someone in my league that started Kyler Murray. His other players went off, and he still made it to the second round. So,
oh, he did. Okay, cool. Good for him. I mean, he's one of a million.
Yeah.
CJ Stroud next on the list, 11.64 fantasy points. We've been talking about Stroud all year. MFB's player to fade in the preseason. Very good call by MFB. Week in, week out, CJ Stroud has proven that you cannot trust him. If you're still playing him, I mean, to be honest, I drafted him in this league and I played Tua over him. And boy, do I look silly right now. Anyways, I still would rather not trust CJ Stroud. But anyways, still not good enough for a fantasy playoff game. So that does it for the QB duds. On to the daggers, the wide receiver duds, the big names that should have got you your wins. And if these guys fell flat, you probably lost your playoffs, your playoff week.
Mm-hmm.
At the very top, the biggest dagger of them all, Cooper Kupp, 0. Donut. This is a player who I think the stat was that he has not recorded 0 receptions in 5 years.
Oh, that's crazy.
And decided to do it in the week 1 of playoffs. I mean, you couldn't have waited till week 18 for that one, buddy. Like, just horrible.
I know honestly, a lot of people that lost because of Cooper Kupp's donut.
Oh, I mean, I'm sure.
Double-digit points.
I'm sure. And it's like, congrats, bro. You burned everyone. Congratulations. So, yeah, that just overall excellent. Just excellent. Yeah, I think.
If you made it to the semifinals with Cooper Cup, hopefully he bounces back next week.
I don't even have the words. I don't even know what to say. Honestly, like, yeah, like if you had a bye week, then good for you. But to be honest, bro, Cooper Cup on your team, he may not have got you a bye week. So if he didn't get you a bye week, I'm sorry, you probably lost. If you had a bye week and you had Cooper Cup, you can breathe easy because wow, what a tough L.
Yeah.
Next on the list, Amari Cooper, donut. He's been bad a lot this year. I'll be honest.
I might drop him. No, I'm being so serious. Like
I might not blame you, bro. I don't blame you.
Why? Like why would I want to put my mental health at risk? My mental health was at risk. Literally. I was screaming last week. Screaming.
Really?
And this fool was getting juiced in the huddle. Every single time someone scored a tutty, he's getting juiced for them. I'm like, brother, I need you to score so you can get juiced for yourself. Oh,
Josh Allen's distributing the ball to everyone but Amari Cooper. It's crazy.
Bro, I was irritated, man. You should have seen me.
Look, he was someone that people traded for, especially with the news. He's going to the Bills. He's no longer playing with, Deshaun Watson. Yeah. BBTV was one of those people. Dude, sometimes something looks so good, like on paper, or it looks really bad on paper and it performs well. That's just fantasy, man. In a crazy matchup with a 90-point total donut, that's just sickening. Next on the list, I put him in here just because you probably felt confident enough to start him this week. He's been playing pretty solid. Houston's had not a very good secondary. Jalen Waddle got injured, knee injury.
He got injured in the game?
Yeah, he only had 2 targets. He got injured in the game.
Where? I did not know that.
Yeah. Apparently, according to Mike McDaniel, the coach, he said that Jalen Waddle avoided a major injury in his day-to-day. But I think it was in the second quarter he got injured. So would have been real nice if he stayed on the field so that, maybe he caught a touchdown and then I wouldn't have lost and Tua wouldn't have had the worst day of ever in his life.
Yeah, he for sure would have spread that field for sure. Like easily, but
very frustrating. Next on the list, another donut I wanted to throw in there is Darnell Mooney on Monday Night Football.
Oh yeah,
a donut, 1 target.
Absolutely.
And you probably were depending on Mooney to do something for you, anything. Last game against Minnesota.
You know the meme with the stick, like try to do something.
Yeah, come on, do something. I mean, honestly, bro, they're playing Vegas. Vegas was not, the best secondary, right? And 1 target, 0 points, man, is sickening. And if you're banking on Darnell Mooney to get you 1 point to win you your week and get you to the next round of playoffs, he got 0. I'm sorry. You're probably not making it to the next round. Yeah. If you started Darnell Mooney or if you flexed him or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Very disappointing. I'm sorry if that happened to you. That's very sad. Next, Deebo Samuel, who we called to have a bounce back game. All the signs in the world pointed to Deebo Samuel doing well, and he decided to drop like 3 passes or 4 different passes.
He dropped a 37-yard touchdown, basically, like wide open in the middle, dropped the ball straight in there and could have had it.
Yep. He dropped in the rain, couldn't catch it, couldn't hold on, and ruined his fantasy day, ruined everyone's day, probably ruined your week because it was a Thursday night game and you're probably like, well, I lost the playoffs because of that. So, terrible performance, man. And he just hasn't been good. This was literally his bounce back game and he botched it. He literally just dropped everything and didn't look good. Juwan Jennings also had a bad game in that rainy game. Didn't do very well either. Had 4.1 fantasy points. I threw him in here because he's been like an auto flex every week. Even I think BBTB called it out last week. He said, "Hey guys, Juwan Jennings is an auto flex every week, but don't put him in your flex position." I remember you said that specifically,
I did.
Which you don't play your Thursday night players in flex. We're sorry. It was a good matchup. It should have went well.
But I blame the weather. Like, it's the weather. It's like, I really think it would have been a way better of a game. but the weather is just what played a big factor.
Agreed. But these are things where it's like you have to do your own research. Everything might point in the right direction, but there may be another factor that we're not sure of. It looks like weather played a big role. And yeah, here in Santa Clara and the Niner Stadium, it's not dome. So they will be affected by the weather.
Yeah.
Next on the list, probably one of the bigger busts of the year, Marvin Harrison, man, 4.2 fantasy points. And he was a trade target. We talked about him. We said, hey, trade for Marvin Harrison. Mm-hmm. These guys are trying to get, it goes along with the Kyler Murray trade target. We were like, look, trade for Kyler Murray, trade for Marvin Harrison. These guys have a good schedule after the bye. They're going to go out and they're going to try and win games. Marvin Harrison's going to do his thing. And he's not been doing anything, actually. Two receptions for 32 yards, 4.2 half PPR points. If you somehow made it to playoffs and he was on your team, do you play him next week?
Man,
against Carolina,
I'm a risk it and say no, and go listen to the waiver wire episode and go pick up one of those homies, man. Like seriously,
right.
He's dude. What I don't want to risk that. I really don't.
What MFB says, what comes up must come down. What goes down, does that necessarily mean it'll come up?
I don't know, brother.
Gravity doesn't work that way.
He's not had a tutty. So
gravity doesn't work that way.
The brother has not come up for a tutty. So
we talked about he should. I mentioned this. He had
literally said he's not getting a tutty.
No, I say he's getting a touchdown.
Trey McBride.
Oh no, we're talking about Marvin Harrison right now.
I know. I'm just saying that I'm trying to go with the analysis that you were just giving about what comes down must come up.
Oh yeah.
McBride has not happened with his tutty.
McBride's not getting a touchdown this year. We don't have to talk about him. I told you he's not getting a touchdown. They just the coordinators can't figure out how to get him in the end zone. It's so hard. Like I don't know how they're just unable to get him into the end zone. It's no words. Anyways, Marvin Harrison, man, huge disappointment. He was drafted very high in the preseason, guys. If you were with us from back then, we talked about in the preseason. This is Marvin Harrison was going end of round 1, beginning round 2, probably more like beginning round 2, but he was going 14th overall, 15th overall pick. We said he is going too early. This is the highest a wide receiver's ever been drafted in like fantasy in however many years. We can ask MFB, the oldest guy on the podcast, but he talked about, the Marvin Harrison's being drafted super high in leagues and it's just not really worth it. And so I didn't take him in any leagues. I actually didn't. And I'm a Cardinals fan, but I was like, it's too much. You're giving up too much to get him that early on. Not paying out, not worth the draft capital. So, one of the bigger busts this year and an even bigger bust, probably Tyreek Hill, 4.6 fantasy points.
Man, he was looking good last week with that.
Man, the ball went into his hands and the defender's hands, and the defender got it out of Tyreek's hands, and that pissed me off.
Oh, you're talking about Derek Stingley.
At the end of the game. It's like the last drive for the Dolphins, like the last possible sliver of hope. And it's like -2 points for me, and then no points to Tyreek. And like just that might have been the icing on the cake to make me lose.
It's okay.
We scored 192 points in our league with Tyreek Hill.
That's crazy.
We made it to the next round, but oh my God, man. Tyreek Hill, one of the biggest busts of the year.
Hey, called it out of top 7. Just called it. Letting you all know.
You're not wrong, man. You said it. Tyreek Hill's not going to finish top 7, and he's looking very far from it right now.
Mm-hmm.
On this list, I added, what's his name in here? DeAndre Hopkins. You expect him to do more. You probably flexed him. Didn't do enough. So I threw him in there just as another player to add in there, bonus. Onto the RB duds. Let's crank through some of these, and not harp on them too much. We'll talk about the important ones. Nick Chubb, 2.1 fantasy points, got injured, out for the season. Najee Harris, he broke his foot, we said?
Foot.
Yeah. Najee Harris, 2.6 fantasy points. Najee Harris has been great all year. When you needed him most, he figured out how to not play for you. So very unfortunate, very sad. Honestly, like just so sucky because like his playoff schedule was tough. We knew that coming in.
Yeah.
And they played Philadelphia, a great Philadelphia defense. So Javonte Williams, he should not be rostered. 3.3 fantasy points for him. That backfield's like split completely. I think him and McLaughlin had almost equal carries. I don't trust that backfield at all. And Javonte is not going to be playing for anyone next year the way he's playing. Tyrone Tracy, 4 fantasy points against a tough Baltimore defense. And they mixed Singletary in, even though Tyrone Tracy was trending up.
Singletary scored the tutty, by the way.
He did.
Yeah.
So annoying if you had Tyrone Tracy to see Singletary come in and poach a touchdown off of him. Very frustrating. Very dumb. Honestly, very silly. Like, why are you doing that, man?
Bro, it's the same thing will happen to me today with Aaron Jones, Cam Akers coming in.
Yep.
1 yard line.
Swooped in.
That annoyed me.
Yeah, they had
one, but I need that next week too.
Yeah, I don't know why teams are doing that. I don't know why the Giants are doing that. I don't know why the Giants are doing anything. I can't explain that. But yeah, I can see the Vikings trying to rest Aaron Jones, give him some juice for the playoffs because he's running out of juice, honestly, at his age. So I understand it, but very scary to see. Or not scary, but it's you get kind of nervous when you see that as an owner if you have Aaron Jones.
Mm-hmm.
On to the next player, Isaiah Pacheco, 5.2 fantasy points. Another bust. Drafted him early, got injured, out for 9 weeks, and the bye week. So 10 weeks technically total, and has come back and not scored double digits, has a horrible schedule upcoming. They might have lost Mahomes for the next game with his ankle, so that offense isn't really going to move. Pacheco, another bust.
Yep.
Kareem Hunt is also there next to him with 5.4 fantasy points. Don't start any of those guys.
Yeah.
Montgomery, we talked about him. He got injured, 5.5 fantasy points, MCL, out for the season. If Montgomery got you to the playoffs, he probably lost you your playoffs, and you're probably out now because of that.
I'm just realizing now, if Patrick Mahomes doesn't go next week, I'm not playing Travis Kelce.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, you're not.
Bench, done. Might even drop him. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I think Carson Wentz can find him because Carson Wentz with Zach Ertz was not bad.
Oh, you are right. Okay.
On the Eagles. Yeah, think back. Yeah. Think back for me now. Come on. Go back a couple of years. Yeah.
You're right.
Possibilities there. So yeah, don't be down on him yet. Derrick Henry, 6.7 fantasy points. We did talk about Derrick Henry having a tough playoff schedule. We mentioned it before. Against the Giants, though, you would think he would have done something, but it all went through Lamar. Lamar just had himself a day, threw the ball a ton, and shared the touchdowns.
Luckily, I still won my week, but I had Derrick Henry, and I was a little pissed off that he wasn't going crazy for me. So
yeah, 6.7 fantasy points. I mean, if you had Derrick Henry, you probably had a bye, to be honest. He'd been killing it all year. So hopefully you made it with a bye week with Derrick Henry.
Mm-hmm.
If you didn't and you're out, I'm sorry. That's tough.
Yeah.
Last but not least, I threw Chuba Hubbard in there for 6.9 fantasy points because he had himself a game against Philadelphia last week with no Jonathan Brooks. And this week also no Jonathan Brooks, but couldn't do it against a Dallas defense that has allowed a lot of yards on the ground, but they've really stepped up. So if you had Chuba Hubbard and he got you into the playoffs because he's been killing it and he was a late pickup, you might have lost this week because of him.
Yeah.
Very, very unfortunate to have a player that's been killing it all season that you've depended on and that has gotten you this far to just drop you less than double digits in the fantasy playoffs when you need them most. Everyone's always saying like, oh, just get to playoffs, just make it into playoffs. And when you're in the playoffs, it's, anything can happen. But it's like, dude, Chuba, who's been like really good. There was noise about Jonathan Brooks when he comes back. He came back, got injured, and completely got fade. Like he's gone. It's all Chuba Hubbard now.
Mm-hmm.
And he has a nice playoff schedule. So you're probably thinking like, oh, I can flex this guy, or if you need to start him, I start this guy and he's going to do great for me. And just 6.9 fantasy points in half PPR is nowhere near enough to get you the win in fantasy. You're probably out of playoffs now.
Yeah.
Because of that performance. Very sad. Very unfortunate. But that does it for the RB duds. Am I missing anyone?
No.
Tank Bigsby's in there. 4.2 fantasy points. I wouldn't start any of those back.
No, you're not starting the RB2.
Yeah. Gus Edwards also the starting running back for the Chargers. 2.3. Yeah. You should not be starting him.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move on to the tight end duds. Finish this off. Dalton Schultz, 2.3 fantasy points. We've talked about him all year. Don't ever start him. Jake Ferguson, 3.3 fantasy points. In a game where Cooper Rush was actually slamming it.
I was about to say, bro, that was the surprising one. I thought this would be his bounce back game, but didn't pin out to that.
Carolina's given up a ton of points to tight ends. So did it go to Schoonmaker? Question.
No. It didn't go to Schoonmaker. It went to like the third string receiver. I don't know his name, but I saw
Turpin? Devontae Turpin?
No. I would know Turpin. It's like the not Cooks, not Turpin. Fourth string technically, or fourth option, whatever. I'm gonna find it right now.
Are you sure it's not Turpin?
It's not Turpin.
Okay. Anyways, find out for us. Tolbert. Jaden Tolbert. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, unfortunate because if you drafted Ferguson, you held on to him through his injury, and you were playing him this week. He's a tight end that you fade, brother.
Who?
He's a tight end. He's who you get when you fade the tight end.
Jake Ferguson. Oh yeah. I mean, not really. He wasn't disappointing. Fade tight end.
No. I'm saying like if you faded tight end, you probably ended up with Jake Ferguson, and he's been disappointing.
No, but Jake Ferguson went like round 6. He wasn't like you're still fading round 6.
He wasn't. I don't remember. Anyways, I'm pretty sure he went later than that because I think Pitts was going round 5, round 6. So, Ferguson, man, just disappointing year. If you haven't, you probably didn't make it to playoffs. So, anyways, let's continue. Cade Otton, man, 3.4 fantasy points. He was red hot, man, for a few weeks.
Dude.
Week 7, 10 targets, 8 receptions, 100 yards. Week 8 against Atlanta.
What pisses me off is that he's Baker Mayfield moving the ball.
Yep.
And not to Otton. Like,
I don't know what happened since the bye week, man. He has not hit double digits in half point scoring. Before the bye, he had a tough game against the Niners. He had 8 targets, 5 receptions, 35 yards, pedestrian numbers.
Mm-hmm.
The 3 weeks before that, he had 10 targets, 11 targets. And he had 100 yards and then 2 touchdowns and then a touchdown in those 3 games. He had three touchdowns in 3 games and then nothing. And then bye week and then nothing. And it's just like, is it because Mike Evans is going for that record and everything's going to Mike Evans? They're throwing to the rookie, McMillan.
Dude, I have no clue.
This is one of those things that happens in fantasy where it's so hard to determine whether you trade this player away or you keep him. It's like what we saw with Jonnu Smith. The opposite, Jonnu Smith suddenly turned up onto the scene and started playing crazy, right? And doing crazy things. But he has not regressed. He's been great for the past, 8 weeks? He's been excellent. Cade Otton had himself 3-game stretch. He actually had 4-game stretch with 4 touchdowns in 4 games from week 6 to 9. And then just boom, fell off and has been not good. Disappeared, man. So very unfortunate. If you picked him up, you're probably holding on to him just because you've seen what he can do. But Cade Otton has been very disappointing since that week 9 game against Kansas City, where he had 8 receptions, 77 yards and a touchdown. So do you have any confidence starting him against Dallas?
No.
Or against Carolina the following week?
Maybe Carolina, but no, not against Dallas.
Do you drop him like a bomb to the waivers for someone else to pick up and start against you?
I'm not even kidding. I'm looking at that right now. I have Cade Otton. My opponent, that I'm playing next week in the semifinals, has Hunter Henry at tight end, but his backup tight end's Kincaid. So he's probably playing Kincaid. But if I drop Otton, he might.
You're going to give him a tough decision to make. You don't want to do that. Because if you drop Cade Otton and that would be like a 10,000 IQ play.
Yeah.
And I would, hats off to you if you pull that off. They play Otton just goose eggs. It all goes through Mike Evans because Mike Evans is going for that record.
Yeah.
Yeah, bro, if you pull that would be actually insane.
Decisions.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Zach Ertz, 3.5 fantasy points, injured his knee, I believe. It was very sad, very unfortunate. He was on fire the 3 weeks before, man. He had a touchdown against Philadelphia, revenge game, a touchdown against Dallas, divisional game, a touchdown against Tennessee, and then went into the bye week, came out, played against the Saints, had 2 receptions, 25 yards, and an injured knee. So sad to see it. Sorry, it's not a knee. It was concussion. I'm sorry. I got him confused with someone else. Concussion. So he got ruled out after the concussion in the second quarter. So very unfortunate. It's part of football. These injuries happen. Last but not least, let's talk about BBTB's favorite player, Travis Kelce.
Man, I hate Noah Gray.
With 4.7 fantasy points. And Travis Kelce's a tight end that started the year off so slow and finally had his bounce back game against the Chargers week 4. And then from then on, he had good weeks and he had a couple bad weeks here and there, but overall he was pretty solid and probably kept you in it. And now against Cleveland, a good matchup, gets you 4.7 fantasy points. If you drafted Travis Kelce and you started him and you somehow made it to playoffs and you started him this week, you might have lost and you're probably out of playoffs.
Yeah, I'm somehow still in it. Like I said earlier, I'm debating on starting him. I have him
against a tough Houston defense. Yeah, it's dude. These are decisions that you guys can either figure it out for yourself or ask us in the Discord. Yeah. At the end of the day, you just go with your gut. Yeah. I've tried to fantasy 300 IQ things. I'll be honest, the 300 IQ plays usually don't work in your favor. Like it's rare that it does. So if you want a 300 IQ and not play Travis Kelce next week against Houston, good luck. I don't have him in any league, so I don't have to deal with that stress. I avoided him this year, thankfully. 4.7 fantasy points, not enough. I'm sorry. And actually, Travis Kelce was last on the list before the Monday night games. We also want to add in there Kyle Pitts with 4.8 fantasy points. Yep. If you had Kyle Pitts this year and you had the strength to start him this year against in a good matchup against Vegas, and he got you 4.8 fantasy points, can we agree, honestly, Kyle Pitts is a bust?
Easily.
Okay.
Easily.
It has nothing to do with the quarterback. It has nothing to do with the franchise he's in, Atlanta. It has nothing to do with the system.
Nope.
I mean, technically he hasn't played in a different system, so we don't know. But I think that even if something changes, it's so hard to trust him, man. It's so hard. He has so many like single point, like I'm talking less than 2 points performances in half PPR. So many. Adona against the Chargers, 1.9 fantasy points against Minnesota, 4.8 in your fantasy playoffs round 1. If you had Kyle Pitts and you played him, you probably lost. I'm sorry.
Easily.
Very tough. Very unfortunate. Basically, it'd be very, very hard for me to want to draft a player like that can just drop such low points, like such a bad performance, man. Just terrible.
Yeah.
And it's not like he was just killing it. Since week 9, I want to just read some of his stats real quick. I know we're going over here. I tried to go quick. It didn't happen. Against Dallas, week 9, 1 reception, 1 target, 11 yards. Against the Saints, 4 receptions on 6 targets, 55 yards. Decent. 7.5 fantasy points and half PPR. Against Denver, 3 targets, 1 reception, 9 yards. 1 reception, 9 yards. It's week 12 bye. Week 13, goose egg on 2 targets against the Chargers. Week 14, 1 reception, 14 yards, 6 targets. 1 reception, 14 yards. Terrible. And then against Vegas, 4 receptions, 4 targets, 28 yards. Kyle Pitts is a bust. You do not play him. He should have been dropped to the waivers, like I said, week 4. No, I didn't say that about him. But you should trade him away after he went off against Tampa. Those 2 weeks, those are the only games he had really good performances. Other than that, he's been mediocre. Last but not least, Brock Bowers, 5 fantasy points.
MVP sit of the week.
MVP sit of the week, man. And Brock Bowers has been good this whole season, but these last few weeks, man, the Raiders are trying so hard to lose, and they're doing it any way, shape, or form they possibly can. And unfortunately, it has a very negative effect on Brock Bowers. So if you have Brock Bowers, I'm sorry. He probably got you to the playoffs. He might have just lost you your first round if you were in the first round playoffs with him.
Just letting you know that Shedeur Sanders is trying to be a Las Vegas Raider. So I think there might be taking for Shedeur Sanders from the quarterback from Colorado.
Either way, they're competing with the Giants for who can have less wins this season. Giants have the number 1 pick right now.
Right now?
Yeah. Pretty sure.
No, right now it's Vegas. Then it's
it is?
Currently.
Oh, okay. It's going to be interesting.
Because Vegas technically had the easier strength of schedule, so that's why they're ahead of them. So because they're both 2-12.
Yes, but
Raiders had the easier strength of schedule, so that's why they're easier strength of schedule.
Either way, these guys play Jacksonville next week.
Yeah,
Brock Bowers. Do you trust him?
Yeah, I mean you're gonna have to. You've rolled out with him. You're gonna have to.
It's so tough when you have players on these teams.
Yeah.
Brock Bowers is, in hindsight, probably a player you get rid of because you're like, dude, the Raiders are trying to lose. He's looked so good, but it's like, dude, the Raiders are trying to lose. Get rid of him before you're in this situation. Last week, 6.7. This week, 5 fantasy points. Not enough, man. You probably cost you a week, man.
Easily.
So anyways, that'll do it for the Studs and Duds episode. I know we went over. We tried to go quick. I got emotional with some of these players. Apologies, but that'll do it. We'll see you guys on the next episode when we go over. Probably the next episode in the list will be the waiver episode. So we'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.
Peace.